on the state of education in both primary and secondary school. But first, we had lined up a clip of Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha, his thoughts on what are currently happening. Let's take a look at what the CS had to say.
The government has decided to extend school closure for 1 month, effective from the date of opening. During the intervening periods, there will be many interventions that will depend on how the government is able to control this disease. I want to emphasize one point, that whenever the examination is going to be administered, every child, every Kenyan child, will have been given the opportunity to cover whatever time that is lost before the said examination is administered. At this point that I'm speaking to you, the government has not decided to postpone both the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education and the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. I hope I have preempted your questions with regards to exams. Let our children enjoy their last week on holiday and then start the 1 month that has been added to them. Thank you.
It was obviously the expectation of people that come the end of the initial 30 days that were announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta, a way forward might have been struck on when learners will be heading back to school. But as you heard the Education CS, Professor George Magoha, saying it has been extended for another 30 days just to gauge how things are. Remember that some of these institutions of learning are also being used as quarantine facilities. Questions that my panelists will be talking about, giving us their thoughts on what to expect. And I'll start with Bwana Misori. There are those questions on people asking, when will school be open? I'm sure behind closed doors you've had discussions with education stakeholders on where their fate lies. Mr. Misori.
Thank you so much. I think there's much anxiety on when the schools will open, but the minister has clearly indicated that they have really decided to extend, as a government, the opening of schools in a month's time. But there's something which is very, very clear in that statement of the Cabinet Secretary. It is dependent on a variable, depending on how this pandemic treats us. So in my view, it is of the feeling that even 4th June may not be the date for opening. But if we are treated kindly according to how the management of the pandemic proceeds, then 4th of June may be appropriate date. But let me also add this point. We are so much concerned about opening of schools, and we are not concerned about how our lives have been disrupted. This pandemic has really created a lot of anxiety. There's disruption, the economy is brought to a halt. And our focus should be to have the containment of this disease. Because our going back to school will depend on a serious note on the security, the safety of the learners, the safety of the teachers, and also the safety of the environment. The school environment need to be safe for us to feel that we are okay, we can proceed with learning. Another issue which I think is bringing a lot of trouble and anxiety is the issue of exams. It appears that in this country people believe more strongly that if the exams are not done, then there is no education. So that is the bottom line, that why must we be so more aggressively looking at doing exams when the world over, because even those people who will be proceeding for universities in Kenya or abroad must also be worried, because for example, I listen and I watch TV and CNN giving us updates that 3/4 of the states in the US have really postponed and suspended their academic years. So in our view, and from where I sit, Well, I would not wish to have children stay at home any longer if the schools are safe. But in an event they are not safe, in an event we have not contained the situation, then we are at a high risk, because we must deal with the issue of how do the scholars go back to home when the infection, the testing has not revealed that we are now safe. So these are the issues.
Let's take a quick segue. CS Treasury Ukur Yatani is set to address on the state of the financial status of the country. Let's go straight to Ukur Yatani.
Credit advance to enterprises involving manufacturing activities rose by 9.3% to stand at Kenya shilling 366.9 billion in 2019, a further indication of the increased activity in the sector during the period under review. In the sector of building and construction sector, the building construction sector, the gross value added was estimated to have risen by 6.4% in 2019 compared to 6.9% in 2018. The decelerated growth was attributable to the gradual cessation of activities related to the construction of the standard gauge railway that was completed in the year under review. The slowdown in the sector's performance was reflected in consumption of cement, which declined marginally from 5,948.7 thousand tons in 2018 to 5,933.3 thousand tons in 2019. During the period under review, the total length of roads paved increased by 14.2% to 21,295 kilometers in 2019. Uptake of credit in the construction sector grew by 1.6% from Kenya shilling 114 billion in 2018 to 115.8 billion in 2019, slower than 1.8% growth in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, the financial and insurance sector remain on a growth trajectory to expand by 6.6% in 2019 compared to 5.3% growth realized in 2018. Financial service subsectors grew by 5.7% in 2019 relative to 4.8% recorded in 2018. Domestic credit grew by 7.5% in 2019 compared to a growth of 6.4% in 2019. Credit to the national government increased by 4.8% from Kenya shilling 859 billion as of December 2018 to Kenya shilling 900.4 billion as of December 2019, while credit to the private sector rose by 7.1% from Kenya shilling 2,490.1 billion in 2018 to Kenya shilling 267.9 billion in 2019. In the insurance subsector, net premium from life insurance increased from Kenya shilling 80.4 billion in 2018 to Kenya shilling 90.5 billion, while general insurance business recorded a decelerated growth of 1.1% in 2019. On public finance, the national government expenditure in 2019-2020 is expected to grow by 10.6% to Kenya shilling 3,256 billion from Kenya shilling 2,944 billion spent in 2018-2019. Recurrent and development outlays are estimated to grow by 3% and 42% to Kenya shilling 2,447.2 billion and Kenya shilling 808.9 billion, respectively, during the review period. Total revenue is expected to grow by 21.4% to Kenya shilling 2.13 trillion. Total revenue is expected to grow by 10.3% to Kenya shilling 1.893 trillion, of which tax revenue is estimated at Kenya shilling 1.771 trillion. Regarding the total stock of public debt, the external debt accounted for 57% of the total debt stock. The county government expenditure is expected to increase by 19.2% to Kenya shilling 483.4 billion from actual expenditure of Kenya shilling 405.5 billion in 2018-2019. Current transfers from national government to the county governments, inclusive of conditional grants, is increased marginally to Kenya shilling 373.6 billion in 2019-2020 from Kenya shilling 372.5 in 2018-2019. On the international trade and balance of payments, the value of total trade rose from Kenya shilling 2,378 billion in 2018 to Kenya shilling 2,403 billion in 2019, while total value of exports declined by 2.9% to Kenya shilling 596.7 billion, and import bill increased by 2.4% to Kenya shilling 1,806 billion in 2019. Re-exports rose by 6.2% from Kenya shilling 71.4 billion in 2018 to Kenya shilling 75 billion in 2019. The rise in the total import bill against the decline in total export earnings led to the deterioration of export-import ratio from 34.8% in 2018 to 33% in 2019. The balance of payments position improved from a surplus of Kenya shilling 103 billion in 2018 to a surplus of Kenya shilling 106 billion in 2019, supported by a build-up in reserve assets. On the workforce, the total person engaged in the modern and informal sectors went up from 17.3 million in 2018 to 18.1 million in 2019. Total new jobs generated in the economy were 843,000 in 2019. Employment in the modern sector recorded a growth of 2.4% in 2019 compared to 2.8% in 2018. In the year under review, a total of 61.8 thousand jobs were created in the modern sector. The informal sector is estimated to have created 767,000 new jobs in 2019 compared to 744,000 new jobs in 2018. The nominal wage bill rose from Kenya shilling 2,058 billion in 2018 to Kenya shilling 2,311 billion in 2019, an increase of 12.3%. The private sector wage bill went up by 10.6% to stand at Kenya shilling 1,609 billion in 2019, while the public sector wage bill rose by 16.2%. Average earnings increased by 2.7% in 2018 compared to 3.2% recorded in the previous year. In the sector of accommodation and food service activities, these sectors were vibrant in spite of pockets of insecurity concerns experienced during the year under review. The sector gross value added rose by 10.3% compared to 16.6% growth in 2018. The growth of the sector in the period under review was supported by heightened security, relaxation of travel advisories by governments of key tourism markets, and political stability that prevailed in the country. The number of international visitor arrivals increased by 0.4% to 2,035,000 in 2019, which was a slower growth compared to a 14%.
That was obviously the state of the country's economy. Ukuri Atani breaking down the fiscal situation of the country pertaining to the private and public sector. But back to our discussion on studio regarding the state of education right here in the country. We will continue this discussion with our panelists, and I'll go straight to Mwalimu Mjomba. Perhaps as a teacher, what are some of the challenges that you're facing with the government insisting that despite learners not being able to go to class, they can still learn while at home using technology?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you for hosting me. I'd like to start by where Bwana Misori stopped, and then I join with your question. And the fact is, the government has already communicated that we are going to have 31 days, or we are going to open on 4th of June 2019. But now, this is supposed to be based on different issues that are affecting the country. So, for example, if you are dealing with the issue of coronavirus, we have pupils, we have teachers that traveled outside Nairobi, outside Mombasa, outside Kilifi counties, and these people are supposed to be, or they are having their sessions in Nairobi and these particular counties. So if by any chance that we open and the situation has not been mitigated, then definitely how will this particular group get to Nairobi, get to different areas of learning? So I'll request that first of all we make sure that the situation is contained fully, and then after that, then the issue of having learners going to school is supposed to be addressed.
Mwalimu Mjomba, for the last 1 month, obviously, government released a timetable saying that there will be radio and TV lessons. They also encouraged parents to try and acquire certain gadgets so that learning can also continue online. From the feedback you're getting from your learners, perhaps, or have you engaged your learners to try and gauge where they are at the moment?
Currently, the statement by the government of the digital platform acting as a solution for this learning period during this particular corona period, I think it is for the chosen few, because we have children, parents and families that are not in a position to acquire even a meal a day, and they don't even have the phones, they don't have the gadgets that the government is talking about. So how will that particular child get to access education? So the platform, yes, is good, the digital platform is really, really good, but for the chosen few, and this is for the elites in the societies. So that is the reasons why I'm proposing that it is better if we have all pupils going back to school, having a session with them for a period of time to take care of those that are coming from the families that are not in a position to acquire these particular phones.
Mr. Misori, obviously, the issue of a chosen few having access to technology, because the representation on the ground is that those that need it the most cannot access the radio or even online learning that the government was dealing with, was suggesting rather. Your thoughts on that subject matter?
Thank you so much. Now, let me just revisit what my brother is saying, and let me be very, very specific. According to 2019 census report, it revealed that about 30% of Kenyans have access to TV, 40% are also accessible to radio. And the phones are a bit liberal, the phones are so many. But the phones which are there may not sufficiently provide education for this matter, because you have to download. You are like, for example, just before I came in here, I saw an advert which a news popped in when the KICD is telling us we should take advantage of a link. How many of our households are connected to the internet? That platform is unreliable and cannot be a strategy of disseminating education, and learning is not properly done. It has brought a lot of inequality. And going by what I saw last week, we are now so much anxious and focused on listening to what's happening in our country, at what state are we in terms of health. Very few people are interested in getting to the platform with the children, because the children are being asked that their parents should download and guide. How many of our parents have the capacity to guide learning process? And that's only one. Now, like now when we are just here, you have seen we are prioritized. When the Minister for Finance was trying to give us the state of economy, that one is there. On Friday, last week, when physics lesson of Form 3, refraction and reflection using convex and concave lens, I followed very keenly on how the lesson was going, and I thought it was a perfect a perfect strategy to deliver information. But at the same time, the CS Health was coming to give the daily updates. So that lesson was interrupted. So we have got a lot of interruptions. Beyond that, most of these regions in this republic do not have the 3G, 4G capacity to receive. But another thing, the issue of connectivity and the powering of the gadgets that we have. So there are a lot of challenges. So looking at that frontier alone may not sufficiently make us believe that this thing is a wonderful platform and therefore learning is taking place. And take note, just some few, not just before Corona itself, the students themselves or children who are going to primary schools, secondary schools, are outlawed to have phones.
True.
So that to convince a primary child that now you must get the information from there, when it is an outlawed thing, they know that this thing is not the thing to deliver education, for example. So in my view, I think it is an overstatement from government side to say that learning is taking place. It is a good strategy, and another thing which is there is that none of the teachers were inducted. A radio lesson or a TV lesson being conducted on such a platform and to deliver knowledge must be properly guided. And the lessons are short. In a normal learning institution, our lessons for primary schools run for 35 minutes. For secondary schools, they are 40 or 45. Now, how would the learning take place within a framework of 20 minutes? And then you are comfortable that you have already gained something. It is a very good idea, but because this thing caught us unawares, we didn't know we were going to land in this. The COVID-19 has given us another opportunity now to think within ourselves and outside ourselves that going forward, this is a frontier which needs to be developed. It is not yet sufficiently developed to deliver education to the standards